Hello everyone, and welcome to Common Cues. Today's question is about the wives of Prophet Muhammad. So, who did he marry? And why did he have more than one wife? Pre-Islamic Arabian society was based on a structure of tribal relations, and marriage meant something quite different to the modern understanding. Life centered around the tribe, and marriage into a tribe was a game changer for inter-tribal relations. Yet in 6th century Arabia, women were entirely the property of men, and any influence they had only came through their relation to an influential male member of a tribe, such as the tribal chief. Unrestricted polygamy was the norm among the pagans of Arabia, and the vast majority of women had no say in who they would marry. Marriage was a tribal matter, and only rarely did women have any independence, such as those left with inheritance after a male family member's death. Khadija, the Prophet's first wife, is a good example of this. She had been the daughter of a wealthy merchant and went on to conduct trade herself. Khadija entrusted her trade to Muhammad, who was widely known as the trustworthy one, and soon proposed to him. Their marriage was monogamous and lasted 25 years until her passing. It was only after her death that Muhammad took other wives. The fate of the vast majority of women in Arabia was in the hands of tribal customs. Customs which included women being inherited by men, sold as slaves, or killed at birth. The Prophet preached the Quran's message against such practices. O you who believe, you are forbidden to inherit women against their will, nor should you treat them with harshness. Chapter 16 of the Quran condemns the negative attitude of the pagan Arabs toward having daughters. With shame does he hide himself from his people because of the bad news he has had. Shall he retain it in contempt or bury it in the dust? Ah, what an evil choice they decide on. The Quran also challenged the culture of unrestricted polygamy by limiting the number of wives a man could marry, as well as encouraging monogamy given polygamy's serious responsibilities. Marry other women of your choice, 2, 3, or 4, but if you fear that you may not treat them fairly, then marry only one. Marriage to Prophet Muhammad offered women a way out of oppressive customs. Widows, divorcees, and slaves had very little support and were not seen as desirable. But the Prophet showed great care towards the marginalized by choosing to only marry such women after his long marriage to his first wife. From the cultural perspective of the time, the women he married became members of Prophet Muhammad's tribe and would be guaranteed protection and rights through his support as their husband. The woman the Prophet married after Khadija's passing was a widow named Sauda binti Zama, who was threatened by her family for her decision to follow him. In addition to protecting the vulnerable, the Prophet's marriages were intended to improve tribal relations. His marriage to the widow Salama is a case in point. She belonged to a powerful tribe, the Banu Makhzum, many of whose influential members had fought Muhammad. The marriage helped strengthen bonds of kinship and ultimately reduce tribal tensions. The Prophet didn't share his society's negative view of divorced women either. His later wives, Zainab binti Khuzaymah and Habiba, were both divorced and without support when they married him. The Prophet's marriages to Rayhana binti Zayd, an ex-Jew, and Maria al-Qibtiyya, an ex-Christian from Egypt, both of whom he freed from slavery, indicates the Prophet's respect for diverse communities. When it comes to the Prophet's marriage to Aisha, the daughter of one of his companions, some have been quick to pass judgment. While there is no agreement among scholars on her age, some have pointed to a source putting her age of marriage as 9. Based on corroboration of multiple sources, a growing number of scholars have arrived at more realistic estimates of her being between 15 and 19 years old. Even taking the younger figure, the fact that marriage was very commonly arranged by tribes years before consummation can't be ignored. It is easy to judge history by our modern values. What matters most, however, is how the situation of women changed with the arrival of Islam. In the words of a scholar of religion, Huston Smith, looking at the difference between pre- and post-Islamic Arabia, we are forced to ask whether history has ever witnessed a comparable moral advance among so many people in so short a time.